敵データ収集捕獲マーク起動。愉快な反撃の時間です。敵データ収集捕獲マーク起動。愉快な反撃の時間です。
Pela's a really strong flex character, and I feel like she's pretty undervalued for what she can bring to the table. So, to quickly summarize, she has a 100% uptime on her 40% death shred on all enemies, which alone can equate to a 20 to 30% team-wide damage increase. She's also completely skill point positive and only needs to use her basic attack to get a 2-turn ult, and she can also dish out some pretty respectable sub DPS damage. So my goal is to help you get the most out of your Pela. I'm going to assume that you already know how her kit works, so we're not going to go over any of those. We're just going to show my stats really quickly. She's got an energy regen rope, which is required for this build. Speed boots, also highly recommended. And we'll go over each relic individually as well, but this is how my Pela is built. For light cone options, before the tutorial mission starts is the optimal one because it enables the 2-turn ult rotation, as well as gives some comfiness with all that effect hit rate. Resolution Shines at high superimposition levels can actually out damage this and provide more output for the team, but I'd still recommend tutorial just because of the comfiness and 2-turn ult rotation. The good news with Pela is you don't need to spend that much time leveling her traces because not all of them are useful at high levels. This one's nice for extra sub DPS damage. This one is a quality of life one that I do recommend, especially in dot teams. It just helps everyone land their abilities and debuffs more easily. The skill is something I just wouldn't touch because you're never really going to use it. You can, and I'll tell you when you should use it. All her minor traces are good and worth leveling. This last major trace, I'll tell you when again to use her skill. I've leveled her basic, but it's not necessary. It's more sub DPS damage. Her ult is the most important one to level a lot. 40% def on all enemies. So I'll just give you a quick comparison. Silverwolf gives 45% def down, but it's only single target. Of course, she does a lot more than just def down, but with her technique, she can also apply a 20% def when you start the battle with it, but yeah, you definitely want to be leveling her ult. I'll go more in depth about her talent level in just a bit. We're just going to go to relics real quick. Hunter of Glacial Forest 4-piece is her highest for personal damage. You can also run a mix set with Ice and Musketeer, or 4-piece Musketeer, or 4-piece Wind, which in some cases is her best in slot. Fleet of the Ageless or Broken Keel, either one works. They're really close. But Fleet is easier to meet the requirements, as well as better for dot teams because dots usually scale off attack. Crit rate body for sure. Speed boots. I didn't really level this one up because it had bad substats. Ice damage orb and energy regen rope. 5-star needs to be max level. I do have some pretty copium relics for her. Anyway, as far as Eidolons go, her E1 doesn't really come in handy that often because you're already getting a 2-turn basic rotation. There are some situations where you can get a 1-turn, but you shouldn't be relying on it. Eidolon 2 requires you to use the skill, and it's also very niche, so it's not very good. E4, if you have excess skill points, you can increase her personal damage with it, but most of the time it's not going to come in handy. None of her Eidolons are great, but you probably have her E6 because she was on Sele and Loach's banner. So at least you can be happy with E6. It can increase her sub DPS potential by a lot, which makes running her with Glacial Forest a lot more viable as well. Otherwise, 4-piece Wind is probably her strongest set before E6. So anyway, let's go back to energy and why she can get a 2-turn ult. The Light Cone refunds 8 energy. The Talent at level 7 refunds 8.1, which is rounded, but it won't matter. You only want to get your talent to level 7 or level 5 if you have E5. So let's do some quick math. Got our calculator here. 1.194 energy regen with a 5-star energy regen rope. We'll do this step by step so that you can see what I'm doing. You get 5 energy refunded when you use your ult. And then we can add 8.1 from her talent. And then we can add 8 from the light cone. And now we can add the basic attack energy. So you get 20 when you use a basic attack, then we're getting a refund of 8.1 again, and then 8 from the light cone, and then a second basic attack. It's the same thing. We could use multiplication, but I just want to make sure you see the exact calculation here. So 93.3 base, when we multiply it by the energy regen rates, we get 111.4. So even if the ER was rounded up for the talent level, it won't matter because we're clearing it quite handily. So we look here, her ult costs 110. So you don't want to level her talent more than level 7 because she can already get a guaranteed 2-turn ult rotation. So let's put this into practice. So after using her ult, she gets to 25 energy because the def down applies first. So she gets the refund on her light cone and talent. Goes to 25, as you can see. And then one basic sends her to 67 or 68. We'll check in a sec here. We're not using Bronya's skill to buff her. We just want to test this out without interference. So 68. So after one more basic, she gets her ult. And there you go. 2-turn ult rotation. Pretty nuts, if you ask me. And real quick, we'll make sure I'm not scamming you. Back to 25. Might as well show you the other stats as well. So we have this light cone, which gives us 8 energy on a defense reduced enemy. Level 7 talent restores energy as well. And if we look at energy regen rate, it's 119.4. You can also see the crit damage buff too. Don't pay too much attention to Pela's personal damage in this scenario because these are non-ice weak enemies. We're more interested in if she can sustain the team's skill point economy. Qingque and Bronya are very high skill point consuming, so we want to make sure that she can generate enough skill points so that we can gamble as much as possible on Qingque, as well as maintaining the defense down debuff. Again, no matter what, we'll have a 2-turn basic rotation, so it's really good. After one more basic, she'll be able to apply it. You can still do things like what you saw that yeah, she dies here. You can still do things like line up Bronya's ult with Pela's ult. Of course, you don't want to use a turn where you're generating energy. Like, you don't want to delay Pela's ult just to line it up with Bronya's, but again, if it does happen, then it's great. It's not necessary though. But overall, in a team like this, she has no problem sustaining the team's skill points because again, she doesn't use any skills. And even if she isn't contributing much damage at all, the defense down, 100% uptime, and skill point generating is really valuable for a team. I wanted to showcase one last playstyle with Pela, and this is her skill spam playstyle. And it really only works if you have a skill point efficient damage dealer like Blade. I'm sure we'll get more in the future, but for now, he's the one that this pairs the best with. And in these teams, we can actually focus a lot on Pela's personal damage as well. And she'll contribute quite a bit. Her E1 really enables this playstyle because it gives her 5 energy back every time an enemy dies. Every time. And it scales with energy regen rate as well. So oftentimes, you're going to get 1 turn skill into ult. And again, this improves her weakness break, which is already quite insane. Against ice weak enemies, she's breaking them so often because her ult is 60 weakness on AoE. Her skill is 60 and her basic's 30, which is really standard, but it just shows how much utility she can bring to a fight. And here we go, this is a 1 skill usage. I do want to mention though that this kind of playstyle is not going to happen very often because her main role is a skill point generator, but just know that there are teams that exist where you can use this playstyle and have quite a bit of success in, where she has the liberty of just spamming her skill. This kind of playstyle also works well with her Eidolon 4. Every time she uses his skill, your enemy's ice resistance lowers by 12%, so there's a lot of synergy there. There's some other traces that if you remove a buff with her skill as well, you can actually get a 20% damage increase. Just a lot of synergy when you use her skill, but It's not our main focus. I'm just showing that I don't have Luch's E6 applied to these enemies right now, and she's still doing about 6,000 to 7,000 on each target. There's always room to grow. My Pela isn't really maxed out. I'd say she's at about not even 50% of her max potential yet. And she's probably one of my favorite comfort flex characters. The thing about def reduction on enemies too is it works for every damage source. Dots, crit hits, anything. And it doesn't matter if you're an attack scaler, HP scaler, or eventually maybe even def scalers. You're going to be doing increased damage when the enemy's defense is lowered. So she slots into any team really well, and that's one of the main advantages of her as a flex character. And of course, generating skill points, all while doing reasonable damage. Now it's totally possible a 5-star can power creep her later on, but I think she's still got some value. I'm missing a lot of traces. My skill's only level 4. I don't have this major trace, but that's not what this is about. Anyway, thank you for watching all the way to the end. I think Pela's great. I hope you found some of this information useful. And if you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Helps me out a lot. I will be using Pela more in the future as well. So I will see you next time.